Welcome to the Pop Culture Lab, where we break down your favorite movies and music. This week, we're discussing Cocaine Bear. Cameron, let's get in the lab.
How's it going, Connor?
What's up, what's up?
I'm ready for this one. This is going to be fun.
I am all jacked up.
I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew and cocaine.
Yeah, it's purely natural. Au natural. It's just endorphins, I promise.
Well, it is natural. Cocaine is natural.
That's true. La coca.
La cocaine.
Neither of us have ever done this before. PSA, don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs, yep. Not even if you get a spoonful of a mysterious substance in the middle of a forest.
Yeah, and especially don't do a tablespoon.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, let's save that here.
So what have you been watching this week, Cam?
I've been watching Peacemaker on your recommendation and that of many others. Just the first couple episodes so far, but it's fun.
Yeah, I thought you weren't loving the start.
It reminds me, honestly, it's good that we're talking about this during the review of Cocaine Bear, because I see some similarities.
Well, how so?
I guess just that it's going for a certain aesthetic, like a very fun kind of don't think too hard about it, just like enjoy the ride kind of a vibe.
Sure.
And so if you lean into that, I think it is fun. It's a fun project.
Not in the same like B-movie vein, but definitely popcorn silliness.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, mileage varies, I think, but if you go into it with that mindset, I think you have a lot of fun with it. And it's getting better as it goes along, too.
Yeah, and for me personally, I mean, the James Gunn of it all, you know, the toilet humor stuff got old.
Yeah.
Especially when you watch it on the heels of the Suicide Squad. It just is a lot more of the same, and I think he relies on pushing that button a little too much, even in Guardians of the Galaxy. But great fun, great action. I don't know where you are, but some of the stuff with like the butterflies ends up being pretty hilarious and awesome, and in classic James Gunn style, there's a couple scenes where he utilizes music to great effect, it's very, very memorable. So.
Yeah, that's his calling card. And I mean, even in the first episode, you know, they have that really memorable scene where he's kind of, you know, singing into a a prop. And what is the song that they used during that scene, actually, at the end of the first episode?
I don't actually remember. It's
I don't either, but
classic rock. He's in dancing in his underwear thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. John Cena is dancing in his underwear, and you know, the audience is seeing behind him. You know, there's like this looming threat, but he's just having a good time, kind of singing to himself. And that is the kind of aesthetic that I think James Gunn really thrives with. You know, some of the silliness it goes off the rails a little bit, but for the most part, I'm enjoying it.
What do you make of the intro?
It's great. I mean, yeah, the whole music, you know, everybody doing the choreographed dancing together, all the main characters from the show doing that. It's really fun. It's a very fun intro.
Yeah, his goal was to like make it the unskippable intro, basically, like, you know, do away with the skip intro button.
Right, and the kind of corny, you know, dance moves that they're all doing, you know, like I like that because for a lot of these actors, I mean, not in this kind of a show, but a lot of actors kind of take themselves seriously, and it's abundantly clear, like, that is not the aesthetic of this show.
Yeah. Say what you want about the overly, you know, jokiness of the show, but it sets its tone. You know what you're getting into when you watch that intro.
Yeah.
What else are you watching?
Trying to think. I mean, I'm still catching up on his Dark Materials, like we talked about last time.
Yep.
So working my way through, about to start the second season of that one.
Have you watched the latest episode of The Mandalorian yet?
No, but the next episode comes out tomorrow, so I'm running out of time.
Yeah, you procrastinator, you. I did watch the third episode of that show. Really a fan, really liking where the season's going. I agree that it didn't get off to the strongest start with the first episode, but I think you also enjoyed the subsequent episode, and I did too. And this one is almost even better. And really takes a detour with some other characters that was unexpected, and I don't want to like overhype it and say it was on the same level as Andor, but the way in which it explored the like day-to-day lives of these people after the fallout of the Empire, and like how the New Republic actually was as a form of government, and how similar Andor, not that different, it was from the Empire.
Yeah.
Just exploring like how, power is power, and it's always going to take advantage of the little guy. And it was an interesting episode.
It's a little more ground level than, kind of all Jedis all the time.
Yeah, not flipping around in space, in your ship and with your dark saber. Much more grounded stuff.
I'm glad to hear that. I'll probably watch that tonight just to make sure that I am ready for the next one tomorrow.
You should be. I think that's about it. We're going to go see Everything Ever All at Once this week.
Yep, tomorrow.
I've seen it, but it'd be good for you to see it. We might talk about it at some point on here.
I do think it's interesting that it has been re-released in theaters a couple times already. In one of our previous episodes, we talked about how I was going to go and see it at Majestic Bay because they had re-released it right before the Oscars, and I just missed it after they switched to Creed. But here they're bringing it again to a different theater in Seattle, and I mean, I think that's a kind of an indicator that to me that's really unusual for a movie to be having multiple releases in the year it came out.
It's probably happened before with movies that have won Best Picture, and then it kind of gets put then again back for another round. But I think this movie in particular was quick to do so, probably because, like we've alluded to, sneak preview of probably what we'll talk about when we talk about it, but it's a very zeitgeist movie, and it's really a reflection of kind of the current state of pop culture. And so I think it's something that already did pretty well in theaters, and it's not like putting All Quiet on the Western Front in theaters, or Coda from last year. Like those movies never had really, really big wide releases in the first place that garnered a bunch of money. And so I think this movie has been outright more popular in theaters. So they're like, well, let's squeeze another couple bucks out of it. So
sure. Well, I mean, and ride the attention. It was absolutely the story of the Oscars. I mean, it not only did it win a lot of awards, but there are a lot of really endearing actors and, people who were involved in the production who gave great speeches at the Oscars, and who, were the main takeaways, in all of the post-Oscars coverage. They were all talking about these great speeches and how deserving some of these actors were too. So
definitely,
I'm not surprised to see them, trying to ride that wave.
Some great speeches. When they won Best Picture, the one of the guys who had been doing kind of most of the talking, he was like, I know I've been talking a lot, and I'll just say one more thing. But he said like 10 more things.
Yeah. One of the Davids.
Yeah. Or Daniels.
Daniels, excuse me.
Jeez. Do you remember, did they do something similar with Lord of the Rings at all? Did that have a second run?
I'm sure they did, yeah.
I would think so. I mean, that's what I'm thinking of, is like something that was already a significant pop culture phenomenon. Mm-hmm. If it wins like Oscars, then it's just begging to be put back in cinemas. So,
right, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're going to be re-releasing The Return of the King, at least for a one-off show here in Seattle, the extended edition this year.
Wowie.
Yeah.
Boy, shouldn't have watched it on that plane ride from Italy.
Well, there's always another opportunity.
Yeah.
Never gets old, right?
Yeah.
For some of us.
You have to watch the Batman again.
Exactly.
All 3 hours.
Exactly. All right, well, let's jump into Cocaine Bear, shall we?
We shall. Let's dive right into this big bag of Cocaine Bear.
Well, before we jump into the plot, you have helped me out with some facts about the real story that Cocaine Bear is based on.
Yes. Here in the lab, we like to be very factually based.
Of course, yeah. That's the real chemistry that we got.
That's right. The core elements.
So it is based on a true story, if only barely. I mean, it
Was that a pun?
Exactly, yeah. Pablo Escobear. This did happen. There was a lot of cocaine that was dropped in a forest and ended up killing a bear that ingested a lot of it. But that's kind of where it ends. I mean, none of the events of this movie actually happened.
Nobody died.
Nobody died other than the bear.
Yeah. And the idiot drug smuggler who died falling out of his plane.
Exactly.
Which also did happen in the film.
So, as you just said, a drug smuggler was in a precarious position. They were throwing cocaine out of their plane to try to, stay aloft.
Yeah, lighten the load.
And so a bunch of cocaine fell into the forest, and they still ended up, having to try to escape and parachute out, but they died. This bear that found the cocaine ended up ingesting 75 pounds of cocaine.
Yeah. So the movie actually might do pretty well on that, because that bear swallows a lot of bricks.
Yeah. That maybe was not stretching the truth too much, actually.
No.
But only about 3 or 4 grams of that was absorbed into the bloodstream, which was enough to kill it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think how many grams directly into your bloodstream in a short amount of time would kill a human? Like probably 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So 3 to 4 for something 2 to 3 times our size makes sense.
And that was at the time $20 million worth of cocaine ingested in today's
in 1985.
money. Yeah, in today's money it'd be almost triple that, 55 million or so. The bear, just ingested the cocaine and unfortunately died. It didn't get up to anything else as far as we know.
Small tidbit, that's more than the budget for this movie, that number you just quoted.
Which is good news for them, because they have made that back and more.
Yeah.
This was Ray Liotta's last movie before he died, sadly.
I after I wrote that down, I think he may have filmed one more show, or he says an appearance in some show that's going to be coming out. But I think this still marks his last feature-length movie.
Yeah. So. And what better way to go out? I mean, this was a classic Ray Liotta role.
Yeah, it was.
And apparently the bear is on display at the Kentucky Fun Mall. Isn't that fun?
That's fun.
Kids.
Yeah. You like Kentucky? You like bluegrass music and cocaine?
Hey, fam, what do you feel like doing this weekend? Oh, I don't know, Dad. Why don't we go see the cocaine bear at the Kentucky Fun Mall?
Why do I feel like Elizabeth Banks took her kids to see that, and she was like, I've got an idea for a movie.
I'm curious. I would actually love to see, from her, how she got involved in this, because, that surprised me when I saw this movie, and as they were doing the opening credits, and it said directed by Elizabeth Banks, who I'm very familiar with, but I don't think I've ever seen her direct a movie before, and there's got to be some story about how she got involved with this. Yeah,
it was actually right here in front of me in December 2019. Sorry to eat up one of your facts,
not
but
at all.
Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who also produced the Lego movie, or I think actually directed the Lego movie as well, they were announced that they were producing this kind of untitled horror comedy project based on a true story. They had a script, and then they eventually went to a couple different people to direct. I think ultimately the people who went on to direct the most recent Scream movie, not the one that literally just came out, which is number 6.
Right.
It was number 5, which came out last year.
Man, they're really popping them out.
Yeah, so I think they probably just shopped around for a director until they landed on her.
But Elizabeth Banks? I mean, I didn't know that she had any directing background.
Let's see. I don't think she does. In 2021, Universal announced that the film was in development. And then, they just announced it would be her. I guess they took a chance. Maybe they just really kind of didn't have anybody, and they know that she knows, obviously, comedy really well.
I mean, not a bad first crack for a director.
No, and we could dig through her IMDb history. It's possible that she's directed an episode of something. Like a lot of times actors, especially ones who appear in shows, will maybe direct just an episode of that show, and you don't really hear about it or think about it, but it could open some doors for them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I got to give her some credit. I mean, we'll definitely get into what we thought of this movie, but the challenge in making a movie like this, I think, is it's a threadbare concept. I mean, there's not a lot to it, you know? And so making a movie that has some kind of a plot that engages the audience along the way, I think that is the hard part of making a movie like this successful. And it kept my interest. I thought it was funny and interesting all the way through.
I think about the balance is a decent plot, and also it has to be true to like its advertising. I mean, you hear Cocaine Bear, you think a very specific thing, a very specific type of movie, and so if even if there was a solid plot, if they just didn't deliver on the fun of Cocaine Bear, it'd be a huge problem. And I think that's what she brings to it the most.
It understood its assignment.
Yes, and at the end of the day, that's its biggest success, probably.
For sure. Well, that's what I got here. Other than the box office numbers, of course, it looks like it's made $75 million with a $30 to $35 million budget, so it's already doubled essentially what it cost to make.
Yeah, it was behind Ant-Man and the Wasp in its second weekend, which isn't a comparison of those two movies, but as far as box office, that's pretty significant for like a comedic horror B movie to be stacking up against Quantumania, even though that's had a pretty significant drop off. I think the number 2 or number 1 biggest drop off in Marvel history so far. So
not half bad.
Not half bad.
So let's move into the plot, shall we?
Yes, the plot of this movie. Let's see. I've got some notes here. Yeah, so like you mentioned, we start in 1985. We've got this smuggler. His name is Andrew C. Thornton. He's played by Matthew Rhys, I believe is how you say his name. Well, actually, I did notice while I was watching the movie too, but this movie features like 3 really prominent actors from the Americans, which you've never seen, but and they don't really interact with the exception of the park ranger and the Kerry Russell character. But it was just funny to see all of them, especially because Matthew Rhys played the drug smuggler who was just, dancing on cocaine in the beginning and dies. So it felt almost like they were trying to be like, hey, do you recognize all these actors? Because he could have been anybody. He only shows up for 2 seconds, but to do that just felt like a wink. But anyway, I thought, I will say, just I'll continue with the plot, but I loved this opening because I thought it set the tone for the movie immediately and really kept that going. Like, I was immediately laughing because he's going, whoo, yeah, yeah. He's super coked out.
Feeling himself.
Yeah, he's just really on way too much coke, and he's like, hurling these duffel bags out the door of the plane. It just had great energy to it. So he's getting rid of this coke. Like we said, his plane's too heavy. He basically hits his head on the way out, so his parachute doesn't deploy, and he falls to his death. He is found by this detective named Bob, but the cocaine is not found, but they know he has some idea about what's happened. He knows who this guy is. He knows his connection to Sid, who's the Ray Liotta character, and their whole cocaine smuggling ring. Like, he immediately knows the players involved, this detective does. Basically, shortly after the bear finds the cocaine, starts ingesting it, then he's kind of stumbled, we later learn it's a she. The bear finds the cocaine. These 2 hikers kind of stumble upon the bear.
These Swedes.
Yeah, these very Swedish people. You'd recognize the guy from Game of Thrones, huge ginger beard guy. So the bear attacks these hikers, we think kills them. That's kind of the last we see of them.
For a while.
For a while. Then we cut to this family. We've got a mother whose name is Sari, and a daughter, Dee Dee. And then there's a family friend, a kid named Henry. Basically, Dee Dee skips school to go look at this waterfall with Henry. So they go out to do that. The kids actually stumble upon some of the cocaine after the bear has gotten into it. And they innocently don't really know what it is, but also have an instinct that it's drugs.
Right.
This is, in my opinion, probably the best scene in the movie. They kind of dare each other to ingest it, but they have no idea what they're doing or dosage or anything. And so it's this really, really funny, but also like painful to watch two like innocent children like dare each other to try this cocaine. And it's funny because the boy is like, well, they're like, oh, how much do we try? And he's like, I don't know, like a tablespoon. Oh my God. And they just eat it. They don't know about snorting it or anything. So they just eat
and immediately
tablespoons.
spit it out. I mean,
yeah. But it definitely affects them.
Sure. Well, and this, before you keep going, I mean, this part of the movie I really enjoyed because obviously the audience at this point, they've been introduced to the concept. They knew what they were getting into, because it's a movie called Cocaine Bear. And so there's this dramatic tension for the first, quarter of the movie where you're just waiting to see how this is all going to come together. They're introducing these characters. You got the kind of drug smuggling plot. You got these kids and, who are kind of, skipping school for the day. You've got these Swedish hitchhikers, and then you got the park rangers. And so you've got all these different characters being introduced, and that it's only a matter of time before the cocaine bear arrives. So it's setting up just like, note by note, it's just setting up the stage for that big moment where the bear arrives.
Yeah, and in some ways I would say several moments. I mean, from the movie is like setup. And if the setup is the beginning and the conclusion's at the end, the whole middle section of the movie is just like a payoff of
a romp.
Yeah, of just all the characters getting picked off one by one, in order of like detestability almost, slash expendability.
Right.
But it's really great. So the mom goes out looking for the kids. She knows that they have skipped school. They're missing. She connects with a park ranger and a wildlife activist, and they go looking.
Those characters are fun too, because she is this kind of older woman who's a smoker, a secret smoker. She pretends that she doesn't, and she's got this crush on this wildlife activist who is always coming to her door to the park ranger office. Right. And so I love that. That dynamic that they set up where she's, hiding her smoking habits and kind of, putting on her makeup and, doing her hair, checking her hair in the mirror and stuff for this guy.
And credit to the actress because she does all that, but she also does it in this way that just feels so kind of icky and self-serving, and that you get the sense that she just doesn't care about anybody but herself.
Yeah.
I actually found myself really hating that character.
Yeah.
Which
you're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. So mom goes looking for the kids. I think basically what happens is they find Henry up in a tree.
Yep.
I think that's the first thing that kind of clues him in. He's like, there's this bear. It definitely got on cocaine. It's going crazy. And then
the bear arrives.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. Bear attacks. And then the wildlife guy gets stuck in a bunch of cocaine. He gets covered in cocaine.
Yeah.
And so then that makes the bear go after him. I think something happens to the park ranger gets hurt too in this scene. And that's why the ambulance is called, right? I believe so. I think she's at least injured here. Anyway, moving on. But the bear attacks and kills the wildlife guy who's covered in cocaine.
No, I think the ambulance gets called because she accidentally shoots one of the little teenagers who's in part of the gang. Remember, the bear chases them back to the park ranger office, and she has her gun loaded and ready and pointed at the door because they know that the bear is on the other side of it. But then one of these scummy teenagers who
The
has
three.
been exactly kind of stands like right in front of her line of sight, and she's such a bad shot that she just like shoots him in the back,
Oh, yeah.
and then calls the ambulance.
Yes. It says here she gets slashed by
Yeah.
the bear, so I think maybe she got it in the back or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, everything you said. The Duchamps gang is what these three kids are called. They just kind of cause trouble in the forest for the park ranger and everybody. Yes, paramedics get called. They arrive, but they do collect her. She gets put on the gurney.
They do, and they have met when they arrive. The park ranger has managed to corner the bear into this room that has essentially become an abattoir.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Like
The bloody room.
yeah, exactly. That's it's like a slaughterhouse essentially. An animal slaughterhouse is an abattoir.
How French.
Oh,
An
indeed.
abattoir.
For the Duchamp gang, it's
The
it's very
Duchamps, the abattoir.
it's very thematic.
Thematique. So, yes. So they get in the ambulance. One of the Duchamps kids has been killed by her. The other one was killed by the bear.
Yep.
And then Liz
there's
gets in the
skinny
ambulance.
guy.
They all get in the ambulance. Yes. The skinny guy goes off with David. So this is the other part of the story that we haven't touched on yet. Is
The drug smuggling plot.
Yes, Sid, who is Ray Liotta, sends O'Shea Jackson Jr., David, out to collect this cocaine that he knows is there, the rest of it, to get as much money as they can. They already know they're screwed out of getting the full amount, so they're just going to get what they can. So the third Duchamps guy goes off with David and also, I think, the Alden Einrich character.
Which is Sid's son.
Yes, Eddie
Yep.
is the character's name. So that's happening over there. The ambulance comes, like we said, and as it's driving away, the bear starts chasing the ambulance. And this is like one of the most adrenaline-fueled, crazy scenes in the movie. Who's Tom? Tom is killed by the bear. Who the heck is Tom?
Probably one of the paramedics. Is
Oh,
my
it
guess.
is.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep. They had character names. I didn't even know.
Yeah, to be honest, like the names in the Wikipedia entry help us keep track of who's who, but the names in this movie did not matter whatsoever.
No. But actually, the Tom, now that I think about it, that guy paramedic was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Like his reactions and things to stuff. So the paramedic there is killed, and the ambulance kind of gets out of control, and the gurney, which has the park ranger in the back, they hit a bump, and it goes up and flying out of the back of the open ambulance, up and over, and she goes from a laid back position
To face
up
down.
vertical, then 180 all the way over to face down on the concrete at full moving speed, and just like
Road burns for, 200 meters.
just becomes an absolute, I don't know, face melt of pavement.
There's a lot of grisly deaths in this movie, and that is certainly one of the more memorable ones.
Yeah, it might take the cake for me personally. It was the most painful to watch.
I think there's one at the end that probably takes that cake for me, but there's some good competition in this movie.
Yes, so then let's see. Henry and Sari, who is Dee Dee's mom, discover this trail of paint left by Dee Dee, so they use that to find her. Eddie and David, who are looking for the cocaine with the help of Stash, the third Duchamp's brother. They go to this gazebo where the rest of the cocaine is stashed. The bear appears, and the detective, Bob, from the beginning, who kind of found out what was going on and has since been in pursuit, is on top of this gazebo,
Right.
knowing that the bear is lurking around somewhere. Or no. He's only up there because the bag is up there.
Exactly. So what you're putting together as the movie goes along is that, these bags of cocaine had been, thrown out of the plane as it was, approaching crash. And so it spread out in the forest, and the Duchamp gang, these, skeezy teenagers, have found some of these bags and have, hidden them. And one of the places they hid them was in the roof of this gazebo in the middle of the park. And so even though the Stash, one of the Duchamp gang is leading the
Perfect name.
right, is leading David and these drug smugglers to where it's stashed. The police officer Bob is kind of one step ahead, and even without being told, has managed to track down this exact gazebo where it's in the roof.
Exactly.
And there's a very fun scene where Bob sees that it's up there and is trying to kind of reach up on his tippy toes to go and get it. And they don't actually show you how he gets up there. You don't see until the next scene when the drug smugglers arrive that he's already up on top of the roof.
Right. But it is played for a good laugh because he's a very, it's not like he's some
Athletic,
strong, tall, guy.
He's been
just
hitting the donuts.
basic dude.
Yeah.
So that his just to give him credit as an actor. It's also the way the character was written, but I think the actor did a really good job with that and kept it funny while also being kind of the most grounded of all the characters in a way. Maybe the only other exception being the Kerry Russell character, the mom. I thought she was one of the more grounding parts of the movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, in a movie like this, you have a lot of caricatures, very broad characters, and those were two who were a little more humane.
Yeah, for every Ray Liotta, you need to have a Kerry Russell.
Yeah, the straight man.
Yeah. So this chaos kind of ensues around the gazebo. The cop basically is trying to distract the bear and kind of doesn't want it to come for him.
Even before you get to the bear, there's this standoff between David and Eddie and Bob. Because Bob is on the roof, he has the bag of cocaine, and he kind of knows that if somebody's looking for this cocaine and they're not a cop, he knows what they want with it. And so they're in this standoff where they're both armed.
David's got a gun, Bob's got a gun.
And so, but he has the high ground. Bob has the high ground, but he's also in a very exposed position. He's on top of a roof.
Drugs.
He's got the drugs. So they end up in this kind of willy-wony, situation where Bob can't. Some physical comedy is here too. Bob can't easily get down from the roof of this gazebo. It's a fairly steep drop.
He's like, "Can you put your gun down and help me down here?"
And then the bear arrives.
Then the bear shows up, and they realize, all right, well, we got bigger problems. And in some ways, he's in the best position, being elevated.
Yep.
And I think they do put together. Well, I think either David explains it to Bob, but they know that the bear has ingested some cocaine. They're aware of that.
Yeah.
And so, in order to kind of distract the bear or get rid of it or quell it, whatever, Bob decides to open up a brick from this duffel,
sprinkle some cocaine
and just
down,
sprinkle it all over this bear who just eats it up, loves it, and so that happens, and I mean this plot summary kind of skips through it all, and I'm trying to remember the exact order, but the bear gets distracted. I think is the next thing that he does lay down on top of Eddie.
Oh, well, I can't remember if that happens before or after Bob shoots David.
Other way around.
The other way around.
David shoots Bob.
No. Bob shoots David, and then Sid shoots and kills Bob.
Oh, you're right.
But you know, when they're having the standoff, they're both armed, and Bob's the cop, so he is not going to back down, right? You know, he basically wants them to, lay down their arms and then lay down on the ground, and David kind of goes along with it, but then tries to, make a quick move for his gun, and Bob shoots him in the hand.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Then there's the whole comedic bit of the bear being all drugged out, laying on top of Eddie.
Yeah. Just crashes,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So he's stuck under a 500-pound bear or whatever. They kind of just play that for laughs. It doesn't really go anywhere. Eventually, the bear comes to and walks away. But then you're right. Sid, Ray Liotta shows up, and he kills the detective. Yep. He's got to get that bag one way or the other. He's clearly the most ruthless. David has fairly ruthless instincts, but is, especially by the end, much more of a human being. And his son is Sid's son, Eddie, really kind of wants nothing to do with any of it. Yeah, he's kind of just like a product of his life, like this is what he was born into. He's not this kind of person, really.
Well, and he's gone, in the beginning of the movie, he is, crying to David because he's gone through a divorce, and he's just like kind of a big open wound. He's not a big scary drug smuggler. He's in the wrong line of work. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, he has his heart on his sleeve as a person, and so wouldn't hurt a fly. So I think that about caps that scene. The next big thing is that Sari and Henry find Olaf, who was one of the original hikers.
Yep.
Whose girlfriend was killed by the bear, but he has managed to survive. He leads them to where Dee Dee is hiding, which is a cave, which we learn is the bear's cave, which we learn is also home to 2 cubs.
Yep.
That belong to this bear. So the bear is a she's a mom.
2 little coked out bear cubs.
Yeah, whether they are or not at that point.
Don't they have like a bunch of white powder all over their faces and stuff?
Maybe it was a dimly lit scene.
That's true.
If that's true, I didn't catch that, or I thought it was. Isn't the waterfall in there too?
Yeah.
So it could have been like that. They were just kind of wet. I don't know. Open to interpretation. The complexities of Cocaine Bear just they go on and on. They run so deep.
Yeah, fan theories.
Yeah, right. What if it wasn't actually cocaine?
Yeah.
It's powdered sugar bear.
Of course.
So they're in the cave, and
they hear the drug smugglers like coming from the entrance to the cave. So they have to find another way out.
Quickly behind.
Which is where this waterfall is. And the back of the cave leads to this huge waterfall.
Yeah. So they head back there to create distance between them and the incoming drug dealers. Just then is when the bear comes back to the cave. And then Sari, Henry, and Dee Dee jump off the ledge into the water.
Yeah.
Where they are safe, basically. Safe from the bear, safe from the smugglers. They are then kind of... Eddie and David look to be moving in the same direction. They then start to express to Sid that they really just want nothing to do with this anymore. David's been shot, so he's like, I'm over this.
Get me out of here.
Eddie's like, I've been over this already.
But there's this duffel bag of bricks of cocaine that are hanging from, a branch that's just out of reach. Like it's too high for Sid, Ray Liotta's character, to reach easily. And so he is trying to get either, his cronies, either Eddie and David, or at one point, the kids and their mom, to, help him, boost somebody up and grab this cocaine.
and this is a different duffel. So this is the bear's personal stash.
And this is where, like, his greed is what ultimately is his undoing, of course.
Definitely. So everyone basically abandons him and what he is trying to do. Even the people that might be invested in it. Like Eddie and David may actually suffer consequences from this, but even they
Well, and
aren't.
Eddie's his son.
Yeah. So no one's going to help this a-hole. And so he refuses to leave the bag, and he shoots the bear.
Like a lot.
A lot, yeah. He shoots the bear multiple times, which if you've ever shot a bear, it takes a lot.
Speaking from experience?
Yeah, no. No, but they always say don't shoot a bear because you'd only make it mad.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
It's very hard to kill a bear. I have not tried. I would never. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But if you ever have a gun and you see a bear, definitely don't shoot it. It will kill you.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens. He shoots the bear, wounds it.
And you think it's all over and that, the bear's died and then slowly just a sprinkling of cocaine from the air.
Yes.
Drafts down from where the
Just
duffel bag
enough.
had been. Yep. And
right into the nostril of the cocaine bear, giving it a second life.
Yep.
That was fun because it was like it's like that Disney movie moment when it's like when Popeye eats spinach.
Exactly.
I mean,
it is a spinach.
So funny. That was everyone in the theater laughed out loud audibly at that point.
Well, you could see it coming, like it was definitely played for laughs. It was a great little ender.
But yeah, you might as well have played the Popeye so bear comes back.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. The bear comes back, and then it and its cubs basically disembowel Ray Liotta like a piñata.
Word. Yeah, that's definitely the word.
And they spin it like a piñata. I mean, the intestines are coming out. It's very graphic.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. My fiance could not keep her eyes on the screen for that one.
No.
I love that stuff. So to me, the pancake death was worse because that just the sheer pain of that and the fact that you're strapped in and you just your instinct is you're gonna raise your hands to protect yourself, but you can't.
Yeah.
So you just have to sit there and take it while your face just gets slid along the pavement. I guess being disemboweled is really
Doesn't sound
better.
great either.
It's somehow so over the top that I don't see the pain in it. I can't put myself in those shoes and be like, oh my God, it must hurt to get disemboweled. It's too out there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've ever fallen off your bike or off a skateboard,
got a little road rash.
Ooh, you just know that that times 1,000. Ooh. Ouchie.
Right.
So, that's pretty much the end of the movie.
There's a little kind of coda at the end where, they all kind of move on with their lives. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and then the stash character ends up with the stash, hitchhikes to New York with his cocaine. And then the Eddie character reunites with his son, which... to go back to the divorce and he was really cared about his son and that was something he was talking about throughout the movie.
Well, and they give you just a brief snippet of the bears in the moonlight, still there by their cave at the waterfall. So, there's a setup for a potential sequel.
Cocaine Bear 2.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that could be a good transition into one thing I wanted to talk about. But we could just discuss our overall thoughts first and come back to this. But I had forgotten that Eddie reunites with his son. So whenever we talk about the ending here, I just think it's important to note Eddie-son relationship, Eddie and Sid,
right.
Father-son relationship, Cocaine Bear Cubs and Cocaine Bear Mama Cub parental relationship, Dee Dee, Henry, sorry, parental relationship.
Yeah.
So there's a definite theme, in my opinion, of protectors and parents. So we can talk about our overall thoughts first, but I think for my points on the movie, it's interesting to note that there are so many parental relationships. I think they are really hammering that theme home.
Yeah, that's definitely present. Almost all of the characters introduced in the movie, and there's not that many characters in this movie, but most of them have some kind of dynamic like that they're at least touching on. I wouldn't say they're exploring in any real depth in this movie. That's not really the goal of this movie, I don't think, but it's definitely a theme. I agree.
Yeah, it's enough to be thematic. It's not explored in depth. But all the characters who basically don't have parental relationships, almost all of them, with maybe not the, well, he does die, the cop.
Yeah.
But most of them die because they're terrible people.
Yeah.
Like if you don't love something more than you love yourself, you're going to die in this movie. The people who survive care about something more than they care about themselves, for the most part. Not entirely.
I think
David's
that's mostly fair.
an iffy one.
Well, I mean, what about the wildlife activist guy?
He died, right?
That's what I mean. I mean, he cares about something bigger than himself. He cares about, the well-being of animals or whatever.
That's true, but wasn't he like kind of willing to let that kid die though? Henry?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right, actually.
I think he was pretty nasty. Like when it
Yeah.
came right down to it, he was looking out for himself.
Yeah. He's definitely a goober. I mean, he's
Yes. But I can't remember if, and it's not so explicit, but it's like the way he's running around, like he's not really trying to help.
he's just out. He's trying to save himself.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think you're right.
Trying to save his own skin. So yeah, we can come back to this, but what were your overall thoughts?
I had a lot of fun. I mean, again, like going to a movie called Cocaine Bear, you have kind of a mental image of what you're going into it, what you're going to get. And it delivered. I mean, it delivered what I was expecting and then some. I thought it was a really funny movie. I had a great time in the theater with the other people who were there watching it. I'll be honest, I mean, there were more people seeing this movie than when we went to the Quantumania opening.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people in my theater, and I think that's an interesting kind of point in itself. But it was a great experience. I think this is exactly the kind of movie that you would want to go and have that theater going experience where people are laughing and cheering, at the same time. So it was really fun. It understood what it was trying to accomplish, and I think it did it well.
It did, and it's a great movie for a theatrical experience. I think it may still be in theaters, so anybody who's listening, I would highly, highly recommend you go see it.
If you don't mind being spoiled, of course.
Yeah, that's true. Spoil yourself and then go see it. Or if you see this episode, just go watch it and then listen to this.
Yeah.
But it is really a good one to see in a theater, and I have had a lot more theatrical experiences in the last year or two than you have. Pandemic didn't really slow me down.
No.
I saw Smile in theaters, which was a horror movie from last year that did quite well. It ended up being it was an independent movie that they kind of were going to release under the radar, but due to test screenings doing really well, they had a much wider release and it made good money. Point being, I've just seen a lot of different types of movies in theaters recently, ranging from like horror like that to Marvel movies to, this, that, or the other. And this is definitely one of the better, theater experiences I had. I mean, Smile was a really good one because people were like genuinely terrified. And this had a little bit of both. It was really funny, but it was a horror movie as well. I mean, I was going to kind of ask you, like, as someone who doesn't always love horror, were you into it in that way? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
the gore didn't bother you.
Not at all. No, because it was played for laughs. I mean, at no point did it feel scary, really, at least to me.
Weren't you scared for the characters though a bit, like when the bear was approaching? I mean, I felt it was a little bit like the shark circling in Jaws. I mean,
Sure,
they played
sure.
with that tension.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess because of the tone of the movie, like you never really felt like the stakes were all that high. You know, like they're supposed to die. Like that's the kind of movie that you're going to see. You know, it's a movie called Cocaine Bear, so you know there's going to be some disemboweling at some point.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like you're just waiting for that moment. You don't quite know how they're going to set it up or how they're going to deliver, but you know that moment is coming at some point. And so no, that didn't bother me at all.
It's like a true comedy horror. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I've heard it compared to Snakes on a Plane, and I
Cabin
think
in
that's
the Woods, something like that.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That is a true comedy horror. It's it delivers itself in a much different way, but it is totally.
A lot more depth in that movie than this one.
Snakes on a Plane, I think, is a good comparison because it's like a B movie comedy horror.
Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, and to what you said earlier about like it knowing its assignment, I mean, I think B movie is the right word. It's like squarely in that B movie category, in my opinion. And a B movie doesn't necessarily mean a bad movie or a movie that's less than. The best B movies know exactly what they are,
Right.
and they're just going for broke, like for that vibe. And it totally did. I thought the violence was, intense and like it definitely made you cringe, but I've seen a lot of cinema violence that's way more like yucky and
Sure.
it was never that. And even the disemboweling, like, my fiance couldn't watch it, and even as you're watching it, you're like, oh my God.
Kind of gross.
But it is played so silly in a way that it's a bit toothless as far as violence,
Right,
like
right.
shocking violence. It doesn't really.
I mean, I think the bear cubs are even like dancing essentially, like when they're doing it, like it's very much played for laughs.
But at the same time, it's not so silly that it falls out of the realm of horror.
Yeah.
If it was like the blood was bright red and going, "Wah!"
Right.
You could like ham it up even more, and I think it would have taken away from the thriller horror aspect of the movie. So I think
It was a
balanced
good
those
balance.
things. Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I'd say overall, and here's probably my number one favorite thing about the movie is its length.
Yeah. Yep.
In my opinion, movies have just gotten too long. I'm going to just say that blanket statement. Movies are too long these days on the whole, And that's not necessarily like Marvel, who are like cutting their movies off at the legs.
Right.
And nor will I lob that at my precious the Batman.
That is too long.
No, it is too long. But even outside of like big blockbuster movies, just your average movie, in my opinion, has gotten too long. Like what used to be a 90-minute movie like this now stretches to
Has
about 2 hours.
filler.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot of filler or emotional arcs that go nowhere or don't matter. Or too much setup or too much at the end.
It was a brisk pace, but it always felt intentional. It didn't feel like the audience was, waiting for something to happen. It always felt like it was moving things forward. This is the kind of movie that really should be like an hour 40, something like that.
Yeah, and no, extra plot threads that didn't go anywhere, like no editing that made it feel like a scene was cut short. They knew exactly what they had. Like it was the right amount of time for the material. Just enough time to set up the characters, just enough information about the characters for you to like them
Yep.
and understand them. And then the bulk of it was just, this bear wreaking havoc,
On a
mostly on
rampage.
people that you wanted to see kind of get theirs. And so I think it really sustained that up until the very end. And I didn't have a big issue with the end, but the ending is where my criticism kicks in the most. Again, it wasn't a bad ending. Like it more or less matched the rest of the movie. So it wasn't a failure. It wasn't like a detour from the rest of the movie. I just thought, like I alluded to, they introduced concepts of familial relationships, parenthood, caring about something more than yourself. And again, they really didn't even explore this at all. Even as I say that sentence, it's like, that's more than was even there on the screen.
Yeah.
But then it sits in my mind for a few days, and I just think, well, okay, you just think how many parental child relationships were objectively there. And then I ask myself, well, why do you make the bear a mother at the end? What's the purpose? Mm-hmm. And it's definitely to humanize the bear in some way, and to show a contrast from Sid. You know, I mean, you want to see Sid get his comeuppance because not only is he a bad guy, he's a terrible
father.
Right. Yeah. To a son who's clearly trying to do better, chasing children who are trying to be protected by their mother, chasing a mother who's trying to protect her children.
Yeah.
In
Cubs,
the bear. Yeah. So
no, you're right. I mean, you're swaying me a little bit on this one.
It's subtle, and it's not. Again, it's incredibly underdeveloped. And so, to me, if you're gonna have a half-baked emotional arc at the end of your movie, I just wish it was a different choice than the one made. I don't think it would have made the movie much more significant, or, you know, it wasn't going to elevate it to be something that it wasn't. It was always going to be this movie. Mm-hmm. But to me, because in the true story of Cocaine Bear, the bear died. And maybe they just stayed away from that for the exact reason you said. They want a sequel. But that's a little cynical and sad, in my opinion. But I guess...
Oh, come on. I mean, this is designed to be that kind of a franchise, though, you know?
But does everything have to be a friggin' franchise? I mean,
Yeah.
Snakes on a Plane was a standalone, and it's better off for it. I mean, B movies don't necessarily need to become franchises, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah.
I watch it probably more than you do. 47 Meters Down. It's a stupid shark movie. Like, it didn't need a sequel. I saw the sequel, but it didn't need to exist.
I mean, how many Anaconda movies did they make, though? You know, how many of the Sharknado movies did they make?
Well, yes, I guess, like, they did, but they're all bad, you know?
Yeah, I mean...
But I'd rather see a new B movie. Like,
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, I agree with you on that, but I mean, you're fighting quite a battle there. I mean, the movie studios go over and over for the sure thing, even though it's not sure that it's going to be a good movie. It's, you know, from their mind, they have more of a chance of making back their money off of like a known IP.
Well, exactly. I mean, but I think that makes more sense for an established IP like something Warner or Marvel owns, like a superhero character.
Yeah.
You know, that IP is the initial box office draw. This IP was nothing until it was something, you know? And so to make the movie in such a way that you're hoping it has a sequel before it even comes out is a bit cynical. It's trying to push it into that. And it's like, well, you just made a movie with like a $30 million budget. Like, it's okay. Just make the movie and move on.
And that's enough.
I think so. I mean, I watch a lot of stupid B movies, and I feel like they should stay that way sometimes. As just the standalone.
I hear what you're saying.
In any case,
it didn't. For me, it didn't. It wasn't even a blip on the radar. I didn't even think about that coming out of the movie. I got to be honest.
I only did because I found myself bored for the only time in the movie.
Yeah.
The only time I felt an irk of boredom, like where I shifted in my seat and was like, oh, I'm out of popcorn, was at the end.
Yeah.
It lost me ever so slightly. That's all. I guess it's a testament to how strong the rest of it is, and was just like moving along and boom, 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 and I didn't have time to think. The ending gave me too much time to think and added in some elements that almost
undermined kind of the rest of the narrative.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Or like it wanted you to think just a little bit, but oh no, not too much.
Yeah,
Don't think too much.
Don't
but
forget,
we want you
this
to
is
think a
still
little
a movie.
bit. Like, maybe it's not just a totally stupid movie. We'll do something a little bit more for you.
Sure.
And so to me, something stronger would have been like if the bear had, like I said, died. So taking the sequel conversation out of it, if the bear had died, as happened in real life, even if they didn't give some speech about human beings are, so hard on the environment and animals, and this is what happens when humans just run amok, these are the consequences. I don't think you'd have to say that because they didn't explore these familial relationships in any depth. If just on paper what had happened is the bear had fought its fight, gotten revenge on everybody who had, done all this to it and threatened its cubs. It got its revenge, and it still had the Popeye moment, killed the bad guy. And if the bear died, and people were actually sad and they all kind of huddled around the bear and had this moment,
that would have been more impactful.
I think so. And it, would have also lent itself to the truth of the story.
That the bear died, yeah.
Yeah, and it might have, between the lines, been like, yeah, this is what happens when humans are just reckless and don't think about their actions.
I think that's a fair criticism. I'm mostly there with you. It wasn't enough to change my opinion of this movie, really, but I think that's fair.
It's only enough to make it for me like a 7.5 to an 8.
Okay,
that's all.
Sure. Speaking of, so you just said your rating here. I'm gonna give it an 8, and that's not. Of course, we talked a little bit about this before our episode here, but we're talking about given what this movie is trying to accomplish, those are the ratings that we would give it out of 10. We're not comparing this to, All Quiet on the Western Front or, Gone with the Wind or anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as we go through this podcast, I think our listeners are going to have to, keep that knowledge in their head. I mean, not all movies are the same. So every movie that we discuss and judge is on its own terms.
Yeah. What is it trying to do, and did it do it well?
Exactly.
So for me, it was an 8. I had a lot of fun, as I said. There are some things that I could quibble with for sure, that I'm not going to get too deeply into in this episode. But I thought for the most part, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It did what I wanted.
I mean, I would say I loved it. If someone said, "Did you like it?" I'd say I loved it, and I would give it this 7.5. I think you can love a 7.5.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Who would be your MVP of this movie? Who was your favorite performance in this movie?
I mean, especially knowing that Ray Liotta was going to die, I was happy to see him in a role like this that kind of harkened back to his history of playing gangsters and stuff, but in this funny way. And, if like in the last movie Before You Die, you could actually get disemboweled in the movie, like
that's fun.
Mwah, yeah. That's chef's kiss, perfect. What more can a great actor ask for? But in truth, probably... let me just fetch his name so I'm fair to him.
Bob.
Isaiah Whitlock Jr., the actor who played Bob.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I know him from some other things, so I recognized him in the movie.
I couldn't place him, but like we mentioned, I think he did a lot of things that made me laugh, like genuinely, but also grounded it. Whereas like I thought Alden Ehrenreich, Eddie, was really funny, but his performance was more of a caricature for most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should give Ray Liotta kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award on this movie, and that will free us up to give this award to somebody else. For me, I think I thought the kid, the boy, what was his name? Bobby? No.
Henry.
I thought he was excellent. He was very, very funny. You know that I have some issues with child actors and some other projects that we watch. And so I always try to give credit, when they pick a child actor who I find convincing. And I thought he did a really, really good job in this movie.
I thought both kids did Do you?
I did. I didn't think she had as much screen time. I mean, because of so much of the movie, she was hiding in a cave. You didn't get as much of her, whereas Henry got more chances to be funny and be interacting with other characters. But yeah, I thought they both did great.
Yeah, and their rapport was really good as kids. I mean, the scene between them trying the cocaine.
One of the funniest movies in the movie.
It was one of the funniest movies in the movie.
Exactly. Funniest movies in the scene.
Funniest movie in the scene. But also it felt authentic as children. You know, like there was an underlying like innocence and curiosity that they played really, really well. You know, obviously as actors, they knew what was going to happen, so they made it feel kind of like, well, this is what would actually happen if a couple of cute kids stumbled upon bricks of cocaine.
Acting natural as an actor is something that is really hard, and I see adult actors struggle with all the time. And so when you see kids able to nail that, I think it really is a testament to there being some real skill there.
I saw an interview recently with Ben Affleck for his movie The Tender Bar. There's like a young actor in that, and in Affleck's opinion, he was like, kid actors, like they can just be authentic, or they just can't hit that. There's like no in between.
Yeah.
Like they're fully authentic because they're children and they're like playing make believe, or they just can't get in that headspace and they can't get comfortable, and so you just
feel stiff.
It's really stilted. Yeah, there's not a lot of in between. You get Leia in Obi-Wan.
Oh God, yeah, that was awful. But
I mean, those villains ran really slowly.
That was so bad. I don't think we're going to be reviewing Obi-Wan anytime soon on this podcast.
Here's my review.
But I mean, for a movie like Cocaine Bear, it's not a movie that people go to for excellent character acting from children, So the fact that they, delivered a good performance, I want to, give them some credit.
Absolutely. And since we never did, just to give a frame of reference, we never gave our rating for Quantumania previously.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So what's the difference between that and this?
Oof.
For that movie, it was trying to do what it was trying to do. So how successful was it?
To me, man, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is probably like a 5.5 or a 6. It was no bueno.
Yeah, I'm with you because, and I almost want to say 6 just to be kind, but my seething anger doesn't want me to give it a 6.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. 5.5. Yeah.
Yeah, which, that's a failing grade. A 6 would be a D-. So
that's a fail.
That's a fail. I think it was definitely a fail.
Yeah. If you had to say binary, yes, no, did it do what it set out to do?
No.
For me, no.
Definitely no.
No. Big no. Cocaine Bear, big yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was a good one.
Any extra thoughts,
I don't think so. I thought this was kind of a good contrast to some of the things that we've talked about so far. Cocaine Bear, it's like a nice little palate cleanser.
It won't be all comic book stuff, guys.
No.
We promise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gonna keep mixing it up.
Do we know what we're doing next? Can we give a preview, or is it going to be a surprise?
We have a couple kind of in the hopper right now. We definitely want to get to the menu here soon, but we're also going to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once tomorrow, so that could be a possibility. And then we're both watching The Mandalorian right now, so one of these days we'll probably do kind of an all-encompassing episode about either the whole series, each of the 3 seasons so far, or just this 3rd season when it wraps up.
Definitely. And if you don't watch The Last of Us, I might force us to do an episode.
I will.
Okay. Because we could just do one where you explain the game, from your perspective, and I explain the show from my perspective, and we see the gaps.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So, yeah. So you could do a before and after.
Yeah.
Before you watch it, after. Things to look forward to, folks.
Totally.
All right.
See you next time.
That's it. Let's wrap it up.
Peace.
Later.